Journalist Sunny Dhillon has written a new memoir about the unique challenges that come with being a racialized person in Canada. The book is called Hide and Sikh, Letters from a Life in Brown Skin. Author Sunny Dhillon joins me now to tell us more. Good morning to you, Sunny.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for coming on the program. I want to take our viewers back a little bit. 2018, you resigned from the Globe and Mail and you wrote a piece. And part of the reason for your resignation, you cited racism, and you were on the receiving end of some of that racism. Can we get back to that time, 2018, and tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. So I was a daily news reporter for about 10 years, or 10 years exactly. And just as that wore on, I found it challenging to be a journalist of color. Often within our mainstream news industry, whenever we discuss problems within the country, we can be very quick to sort of point fingers at racialized people. And being a journalist of color within newsrooms, I found that to be increasingly challenging, the extent to which we were likely to pin blame on this group or that as opposed to this group, and just kind of sometimes maybe the shortcuts we would take to get there. And so increasingly I just found that to be just untenable for me as a journalist, and I chose at that moment to leave.
You wrote Hide and Seek, a deeply personal book. Did the actions of resigning and then the subsequent article, did it give you strength to write this? How difficult was it to write this book?
It was difficult. I think, as you say, the book is personal. I think I, am someone who, has perhaps at times struggled to put into words what it is like to be a person of color in this country. And, sitting down and trying to get those words on paper is always kind of a challenge. But I think ultimately, when you start to share these stories and you start to talk to other people about similar experiences, that can feel very empowering. And when you start to realize that you're not alone, and racism can really make you feel alone a lot of the time. It's almost by its very nature very isolating, both in the instances in which the overt acts occur and just how they impact you. And so I think having gone through that process certainly played a role in writing the book.
The book opens with a story that you tell you and your daughter and another father and their child at a playground, and that father mocked the name of another child.
Right.
How did that impact you?
Yeah, so that was kind of the moment, or a moment I'd feared since my wife first told me that we were having a child. I had thought about, when is she first going to face this really overt act of racism, and it occurred at a playground here in Ottawa. And it was a challenge to get through, because in that moment I found myself sort of second guessing my actions and sort of thinking about how, what is the right way to respond to this. And the book to an extent is an extension of that incident. That is kind of where we start and where we end up, with me discussing how that incident itself spirals out of control, and just how common these experiences are, and how, as racialized people, we need to be aware that they might occur and think about how we're going to respond.
Hide and Seek, Letters from a Life in Brown Skin. How would you like this book to be received with people who are not coming from life as a brown or a black person? How would you like them to receive this book?
Yeah, I think in writing the book, there are the kind of two sets of readers, right? There are the people who are going to see themselves reflected in these pages, and are, perhaps going to, feel less alone and understand those experiences a little more. And then there are people for who these will be the first time reading about this at all. And certainly my hope would be that in seeing these experiences and seeing what it can be like for so many racialized people in Canada to live here and grow up here, to just have a greater understanding of what that can be like, and just the challenges we face, and frankly, the triumphs that we can reach, and how we can grow.
ultimately, how did writing this book serve you?
I think for me, it, like a lot of people, I learn by writing, in sitting down and going through situations and thinking about them more fully. And I think for me, the book helped me just understand these experiences that I, frankly, for the majority of my life, struggled to understand. And I think they helped me get to a place where I'm more at peace with some of these mistakes that I made, and maybe back on a path that I wish I'd been on all along.
That is really cathartic and wonderful practice of writing and revealing. We're so glad that you could come on this show, that you opened up your heart and wrote this book. Sunny Dhillon, the book is Hide and Seek. You can get it wherever books are sold,
Exactly.
correct?
Exactly.
Thank you very much for coming on the show, and continued success to you.
Sure.
Thank
you
you so much, Sunny.
Thank you.
Thank you.